What if I told you that Concept2, creators of one of the most popular cardio devices in the world, created a piece of equipment that does leg press, chest press, and a row machine nearly 20 years ago? And this is the duplicate. Would you believe me? This is the Concept2 StrengthERG review. Let's get it. Hey friends, it's Coop from Garage Gym Reviews. Today we're reviewing the highly requested and anticipated Concept2 StrengthERG. Now, if this is your first time here, we review all sorts of home gym equipment, everything from cardio to strength. So if you like that sort of thing, make sure you subscribe because we'll have more forthcoming. And if you like this very in-depth and very honest review, know we do this all the time and it would help me to know what you're liking by hitting that like button. And if you'd like to purchase this, we'll put a link below the like button that you can check out. It doesn't increase the cost that you pay, but it does go back to support us. Now let's get into a very honest review on the Concept2 StrengthERG. Concept2 is well known. I would say they have one of the greatest cardio lineups of all time, and that is in their row erg, their ski erg, and their bike erg. They are incredible. They're very simple, but they just freaking work. Well, this is the new Concept2 StrengthERG, and it's designed to use their flywheel. As you can see, it's the same flywheel that they use on all their devices, but it's designed for strength. And what that means is it's designed to do a leg press, lock in, do a row, attachment, beep, 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 unlock, and a chest press. All in one device using the flywheel. Now I'm gonna talk through what I think about each component, the actual design, price point, comparisons, all that sort of thing. So stick around if you'd like to see that. And then at the end, I'm basically gonna compare it to their other devices and other cardio pieces that are out there and whether I think you should get it based upon the price point. Now, before I go to the movements, I wanna talk about some of the history of this very quickly. This is not the first time Concept2 has come out with a device like this. It's the first time they've come out with a device called the StrengthERG, but in the early 2000s, they came out with a device known as the Dino. Some people loved it, some people thought, what is this? Well, they discontinued it after I think like 6 years or something. And there are people on the market who like really look for them because they absolutely love them. A lot of people don't even know it existed. This is a reinterpretation of that design. In fact, it's kind of funny. I was surprised they didn't even call it the Dino 2 because it really is in some way an evolution of the Dino. But they may be thinking, you know, let's throw StrengthERG on there because it's a little bit more in line with our current offerings and it'll just differentiate it. They have a very, obvious design using a lot of similar components that you would see on all their other products. So first would be the flywheel. As you can see, the way that the resistance happens is via air. So this bad boy is sucking in air. You have a damper right here that's adjusting the resistance. It's allowing more or less air to enter into the cavity. And then basically that produces greater or less resistance. Because it's using fan blades, and because the more the fan blades spin, the more it resists the air, that means it technically in some way has unlimited resistance. Very similar, same thing we see with the rowers, their bike ergs, also just air bikes in general, which means you can get freaking going on this, and you can also get a very hard workout. You have their flywheel, also many aluminum components. One of the things you see with Concept2, they don't shy away from using aluminum. A lot of companies in the strength world, looking at you, Rogue, rarely use aluminum. They use a lot of steel because it's heavy, it's very durable, all those sorts of things. If you've ever used an Apple product, you're used to aluminum and you probably like aluminum. Aluminum is a durable metal. It's softer than what you'd get with normal mild steel, but it's also very lightweight. And so that's very nice in that this entire device, although it looks like there's a lot here, it's actually not crazy heavy and not too hard to lift up, stand up, and store away. And then when you want to use it, basically being very ideal for a home gym. Now, Concept2 also uses a lot of plastic. So they have their plastic on the flywheel. They're using plastic on the wheel covers, which by the way, I don't know if this was in response to the Rogue Echo rower, but they now have bigger wheels. They're inline wheels with a nice little traction on there, which is superior to the previous wheels that have been in Concept2, which people have been upset about forever. Why Concept2 hasn't ever updated those, I don't know, but if you've ever been to a CrossFit gym and you have to wheel your rower across the gym or something, like my old gym, is very annoying. Or in your garage gym, you wheel it out and in. Bigger wheel is definitely liked. If you also notice, they're using a lot of similar components from the other machines that have basically just been taken wholesale from them. An example, are the foot holders. The foot holders are the same thing you see on the rower without the strap, because you don't need the strap because you're not doing any pulling with the hamstrings. Also, the guide rail, which is very important, is a very similar guide rail to what we see on their other machines. The rollers that they use inside are very similar to what they use with their other machines. And I think for good reason. It's a very smooth machine. They're using actually an optional PM5 monitor, or you can use the ERG Data app to connect to the machine instead of the monitor for a little bit less. It adds up to what will be most likely a very, very durable product. Now, there is a component of this which I think will be a deal breaker for some of you immediately, depending on how you're gonna use the device, and that is the fact that none of the movements has an eccentric resistance. What I mean by that is the concentric is this portion, the push. The eccentric would be the pull, or let's say on the row, the concentric would be the row, the pulling. The eccentric would be the releasing, the going back. But very similar to the rower, when you're using the ROERG, you're not like resisting going back, it's just kind of like letting it go back in, and then you have the resistance of a flywheel. Now, I don't think that means you should write it off completely. I think it has a ton of interesting things to it, but just know it's concentric only. There's a lever here that you use to lock in. You use that lever to lock in primarily for storage, but also when you do the row portion of the movement. When you want to actually use it for pressing, you undo there. It has a nice tactical feel. If there's something that's gonna break on this over time, it would be this, in my opinion, because you're gonna be doing that a lot. But I will say up to this point, I haven't seen any issues. I will point to something that I've noticed on this device though, very quickly, and that is that this uses an inordinate amount of stickers. I hate stickers, it's so annoying. In fact, in some ways, it makes the product, the C2 product, feel like a very unfinished product comparison to their others. Now, Concept2 does use stickers on some of their other items, but if you notice with their flagship, the ROERG, the down tube has the Concept2 logo painted. I think paint, something that's permanent, says something about your brand that we're here to freaking last. A sticker, so annoying. So they have stickers right here that shows you lock and unlock, which is nice to let you know it's colored, lets you know exactly what it is, but everything on it, it's just like all stickers, just vinyl stickers, except for on the flywheel, and I think that's because they repurposed the flywheel from other devices, and other devices have the C2 rubber logo embedded too. But the leg press, you unlock here, you're then ready to go. You can adjust, I hate calling it resistance because that's not really what it is. It's a damper, it's allowing the air to flow in. You can adjust it from 1, which would be all the way back, to 10. One thing you'll notice is they have numberings, both for if you're adjusting it, say as a coach, or adjusting it before you get on the device here, like they do on all their other flywheels, that's embedded in. But to make it easier, I think this is a nice touch, although it's done with a sticker. It does allow you to see the numbers from up top too. And it's high vis green. It's nice to be able to see. So you can start all the way from 10 right here, all the way back to 1. I will say the resistance on this is pretty heavy. Sam, get on there. He wasn't expecting this.
How things should be in another universe here. Hi, I'm Sam from Garage Gym Reviews. My camera guy Coops over here, just looking like a doofus. Okay. I think I might break it.
It's hard to start, isn't it?
It is. It's like breaking the old lawnmower out after having it stored for the season, you know?
Once you get going, how does it feel?
It honestly doesn't change that much. You just kind of get in more of a rhythm.
Yep. So I do that to show you the start of the movement is actually pretty hard. This is not a device that I would see a lot of people going max out for very long. On the workouts, some of the selected workouts, one of them, the max rep on the workout is 20 reps. So it's like, this is not a device that I think a lot of people are gonna be using in a similar fashion to a rower where you're on it for hours. Like, I just don't think this device is made for that. It is in some way a diagnostic tool because you can see your force that's generated on the device, which is pretty cool. But this is the device where I think you're like giving it max out for a few reps and getting off, and you're doing diagnostic type stuff. I will say the row is the hardest, but for the leg press, you're able to come in. If you notice, you can generally get pretty deep on your ROM. You're having to pull in, there's not like pressure. So if you're on a standard leg press with a lot of weight, it would compress you on its own so you could get deeper. But I don't feel like I'm having to cut reps really short when I come all the way back. I feel like I'm able to get enough ROM. I actually like the fact that you have these stirrups. They feel good for pulling the device in on the leg press and then pressing. Unless you have really great ankle mobility, which I don't, you're really not gonna be able to press your heels to the device all the way in the bottom, which is, I think, okay. But I will say this is gonna be a quad dominant exercise on the press, which this actually gives me one of my critiques on the device. It is designed for pressing in the leg press position, but it's designed for both pulling and pressing in the upper body position, which means you're kind of missing out on one part of the movement for your legs, and that's the pulling portion. There's no resisted pulling for the hamstrings, which if this is the only device somebody's using, they could overdevelop the quads at the expense of the hamstrings, which is just not very good for symmetry or performance. So just a thought, if they're gonna make an addition to this, it would be figuring out a way to do resisted ham curls or something like that. But that is the leg press portion. It uses a wooded platform. I don't feel any flex. It's a very thick plywood. It's painted. You know, the wood, in my opinion, feels a little bit off with the other materials. It's the only portion that's wood. This may have been something they were trying to get out the door quick in response to the Rogue Echo Row. Sam says one reason they may have done that is to be light too, and that's probably a good point, because this thing, they don't want to make it too heavy. There's the leg press. Now the row. The row, again, is the one you lock in, so set it to a position you'd want. I like to set it where my legs are kind of firm here. This is one thing I would say I actually prefer about the original Dino. If anybody's ever seen it, you press from this side, both on the leg press and from the chest press, but you row from the other side. So the way it works is you go over here, you have basically a pad, very similar to that right here, and a seat. You sit here, and then you have a chest supported row. Because they have this insert right here, I think you could add a chest press piece that goes right here, basically like a prime stability pad. Put this here, it would lock in there, you could adjust it, and then you have something pushing up against you, because right now, what you have to press against is your legs. It's just not as ideal. But then you grab the handle, which again is knurled, beautiful. I think they did that for me. I want to think they did, because the original and a lot of their handles are not knurled. And I think they've watched my videos and said, Coop would like knurling. It's a very good knurling. It's a passive knurl. I think a lot of people are gonna like it. It's fine. It's on aluminum. I just love the material aluminum. I wanna see it more in the home gym space because it's lighter than steel, yet very strong. It feels like an Apple product. They have this cord. One thing I noticed about this cord is it is pretty easily removable. You put it here and then pop it out right there. The other thing is it does have a magnet embedded in the back, which is kind of a nice feature. So when you place this in, it's pretty easy. You just put it in and then it snaps. You can hear the connection and it's ready to go. So that's gonna prevent it from falling out too. And I think it's so, maybe eventually they're gonna have other handles, which would be nice because on this row, the original Dino had 2 separate handles that allowed you to have greater ROM because they separated. So you go back here. Well, this is a row handle. And so your max ROM is basically where your chest is. So for those that are barrel chested, it may stop here, you know? I would love to see like a Brian Shaw on this or Eddie Hall, which they've done like the max, you know, speed on a rower, basically see how fast they can get to like 100 or 500 meters, which is amazing. I'd love to see what force they can do on this leg press, if it can handle it. It'd be pretty sweet. The other thing that you can do on this row to adjust it, and this is both for the chest press and the row, is this piece right here, adjusts up and down. One thing, it is not a clean adjustment. It's actually kind of hard to adjust it, which is annoying. Part of that is because the resistance, it's still pulling on the cord. So if you want to make it a little bit easier, you can pull the cord up and kind of hold it, and that makes it easier to adjust up and down. Or you can put it all the way in and then adjust it. But that allows it to work for multiple body types. Or if you want to switch on the chest press from more of a flat bench to a decline bench, you can do that as well. Unfortunately, it doesn't go high enough where it really feels like an incline, but just some options there. If they wanted to improve that, the way I would say improve it is you could add something like rollers, but then it's gonna also add weight, complexity, and cost too. Okay, then the chest press. Ba-ba! The chest press, again, very similar to the row handle, a little bit wider, so you can get a little bit wider on the chest press. Very easy to put in, tighten, and then you're ready to go. One of the things with Concept2 products, they're just simple. And things should be as simple as they can be, but no simpler. Honestly, I think that's a metric for good design. It's something that is not overly complex. This allows you to have something very simple that locks in, And then when you're ready to do the chest press, you can unlock this, boop, and adjust your damper. You can also, on the monitor, we have the PM5 here. You can also add in the ERG data, which connects very quickly, actually. They have a Bluetooth module. There's no cord running through this, snaking through to connect to the monitor. It's actually Bluetooth, and it connects very quickly. I would say if you're in a home gym setting, I don't think you really need the PM5, unless you're like using it with a lot of people or you don't mind the extra cost. I think most people could get away with just the ERG data. And I would think that a lot of times you probably wouldn't even use it. You're not using this in the same way you use a rower or ski-erg. So because of that, I think it's easy to count your reps and everything. But the way you do it, I want to do chest press. Click on chest press, which actually, if you notice, when I press on here, it actually automatically selects on the ERG data, which is pretty sweet. It's just like Concept2 did nice implementation, very nice. So chest press there, you do 3 reps and then it'll start. So 1, 2, 3. If you're hearing that noise of like the flapping, that's the foot for the leg press, which you could technically take off if you didn't like the noise. And it feels really good. The thing is, one thing I was surprised about this, it just feels, the system feels all connected. There's not like a lot of like wiggle, like there's some wiggle on it, but not when you're pressing. When you're locked in, like it's tight enough, the tolerances are tight enough. The feeling of it, it feels like you're locked in, very similar to the rower. It doesn't feel like you're using some cheap piece of equipment that's moving all around, unstable. No, you feel like, oh, I'm locked in, I can give it hell and really go after it, which is pretty cool. Now, similar to the row, it would be nice if you could get a little bit further on, you know, say this was like a buffalo bar or something, and maybe they could have attachments like that depending on the popularity of this over time. But that being said, this does feel pretty good. The one thing I did notice, they've got this square tube right here with this aluminum cap. It's already kind of scarring a little bit, which I think is gonna happen more and more over time. But that piece, when you're really going after it, it's kind of like a javelin. You're just when you're really getting after it. I could totally see aftermarket companies coming up with some sort of square foam block or something, because after you really get after it, you can kind of feel some pressure there. So it would be nice, I think, if they thought through that and add some foam or something just to provide some cushion for the pushing. Then to the seat, while you're using all of that, this part matters a lot because you are seated the entire time. The back pad, it's just a square plank at a slight angle. It feels fine. It's high enough that it doesn't affect your scap when you're pushing or pulling. It does feel like it provides a free range of motion. It's the same polyurethane that they use on their seats, at least I think it is. They use on their seats for their rowers, so it's got some, you know, cushion to it, but it also feels firm enough. I think it's a good choice, and also it wipes off very easily when there will be certainly a lot of sweat on that. They're using I think it's a roto-molded plastic. You know, it's like a very strong plastic with a foam seat outline on there, and then you can see it kind of like is very ergonomic when you sit in this. They have these handles here that allow you to just grip into it and I don't know, just give it all you've got. So that walks through all the features, but what do I think about it in comparison to all their other devices? I think they came up with this, one, in reaction to Rogue coming out with the Echo Rower. So Rogue came out with the Echo Rower and did it at a lower price. They added some extra features in there. It's very obvious that Rogue is competing with Concept2, a company that it seemed like they were very close for a long time. Not saying they don't, I think they still sell probably a ton of Concept2 rowers, but Concept2 is like, man, our market share is gonna get hit here. So Concept2 decided to come out with a reinvention, something they may have been sitting on, I don't know, of the Dino and call it the StrengthERG. Do I think it's a viable product for Concept2? I do. I think this is an actual product that people will like. It is different from their other machines. Their other machines are designed for longer, steady state or HIIT type workouts. You can do some HIIT on this, but it's just a very different application. To me, it feels different than their other machines. Now, when I look at this for the price point and I compare it to other machines, this model that you see right here is $1,500. If you take away this monitor, so you just use your phone, it's gonna be $1,350, so it's gonna be $150 less. Do I think that is worth getting? Well, let me say this. One, you have 3 different machines here. So 3 different movements, where say with the rower, you have one, the bike erg, you have one, the ski erg, you have one. There's some unique movements you could technically do with this as you got creative. You could do face pulls, You could do curls, you can maybe do tricep extensions, you can maybe do like calf raise, some of that unique stuff. I don't think it's necessarily designed for that, but they give you the option. Actually, when you go into the PM5 and select your movement, one of the movements is undefined, which means like go party, have fun, come up with something. So I foresee people having attachments and things for that, but really it's designed for those 3 movements. And it does those 3 movements. It does them pretty dang well. I don't think it's gonna replace your squat rack, your barbells, your plates, all that sort of thing. I don't think it's designed for that. But for somebody who is really into ergs, wants something that's compact, and this is the biggest problem with the machine, you don't mind not having eccentric. That is the thing to me that's like, man, if they could figure out a way to have eccentric on this. One thing I was thinking, and I'm probably gonna try, and Sam was like laughing at me, like you would attach that thing to anything. I am definitely gonna attach a Beyond Power Voltra to this. I mean, if I could attach 2 Voltras to this, I could technically have a leg press that did 400 pounds resistance, a chest press that did 400 pounds resistance, a row that did 400 pound resistance, and a compact platform. That would be pretty sick. But I think that's a different implementation than really what's this designed for. I see this being for a lot of people, for rehab, for an older population, or people that aren't necessarily wanting to like track, you know, and increase weight and all that sort of stuff. You just want to get on a device and just give it all you've got for a few sets. I think this is a great device for that. Man, I would love it if they had the eccentric resistance. I understand with the implementation, that's not possible, but that's the biggest critique. So do I recommend it? I do. I think it's I mean, it's a C2 product. I want them to refine it, which my thought with this is they were like, let's come up with something that's like an MVP where we don't make, you know, painted on pieces. We don't come up with all this unique stuff. We reuse a lot of stuff that we have on other devices. And then depending on how well it's received, then we can refine it further and add more attachments and all that sort of thing. But I do recommend it. I do wish, I think the biggest recommendation is I want a chest pad. I want a chest pad so I can do basically what the original Dino had, which is rows with support. So I wouldn't get this personally for most of you over a rower or necessarily a bike erg or a ski erg, but I in some way actually like this better than an air bike. With an air bike, you're doing a push with your leg, maybe kind of a pull if you're doing it really well, but you're also doing a push with the arm and a pull with the arm. This can mimic some of that full body type workout that you're getting with all that pushing and pulling. Air bike, you can do more lower intensity, steady state stuff than I think you can with this, but I think it's a good offering from Concept2. Okay, this is the StrengthERG. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. Would you like to see me add a Beyond Power Voltra or a couple to them to increase resistance on it to make it like a legit leg press, chest press, and row machine? Also, would you like to see any comparisons to any others that are out there from Concept2, or what attachments would you like to see? There's like 20 questions for you. This has been Coop from Garage Gym Reviews. I'll see you next time.